I'd like to welcome you to our monthly League of Women Voters meeting, and pleased that you all have joined us. Tonight, our speaker is Ken Majors, and he is the EMS director for Seneca County, and he will talk tonight about the countywide ambulance service for the county. Ken is an RN. He's been an RN since 1998. He's also a paramedic, and he was a flight nurse with the St. D's. That's what I was thinking of. And he is currently the director of the emergency services for the county. So there are a lot of questions that people have probably figured out they need to ask as they've read the articles in the newspaper. So the League thought this would be a good way to have people come together and ask the questions that they want to know. So with that, we'll turn it over to Ken.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you guys having me tonight. The League of Women Voters is one of the few civic organizations that I know of that still does things like this, that actually does a grassroots research into the topics, the things that go on the ballot, and the candidates. And I applaud you for that because it's a lot of work. And I appreciate Shirley for getting a hold of me to come talk to you tonight. And I'm not going to waste a lot of your time. I'm going to give you about a 15 to 20 minute spiel on it, and then I'm going to ask for questions. The more engagement we get, the more people that want to know. I can't possibly know what you don't know. So I'm going to ask, and you guys tell me what you need to know, and if I don't have the answer, we'll find it. And between the elected officials at the county commissioner's office, the elected officials at the township level, we're doing a lot of meetings. I think we've met 17 or 18 times now, researching what the best options are for Seneca County. For 45 years, we've been a volunteer EMS organization, pretty much purely volunteer. In 2008, we put a paramedic echo unit responder on the road to increase our standard of care the best we could. It's just one truck. So it goes out to all 1,500 runs we get in a year, and they can't possibly be in every place at the same time. So looking at the national trends of decreasing in volunteer numbers all over, not just us, Red Cross, Physicians Without Borders, all over the place, volunteerism is in the decline. So we felt it's necessary to start the planning process to move us forward so that when those days do happen that we don't have enough people, we're not caught completely unawares. Medical care is quite a bit different than firefighting. I've done both for a lot of years. Medicine, emergency medicine, especially outside of the hospital, is a complex, very difficult thing to do at best, depending on where you are. The further you are from a hospital, the harder it gets. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. This is what I'm putting together. These are a couple of our ambulances we currently have. I know you've read in the paper. We got a couple more coming with the pandemic and all the things that are happening, slowing that process down a little bit, but we're doing the best we can. So what we're doing, I kind of put a where, what, why, who, and how much kind of thing together, because I think that's what most people really want to know. And really what we're looking to do is move to a full-time paid ambulance service for anybody in Seneca County who's not already covered by one. City of Tiffin, City of Fostoria, some of the townships who contract with those agencies or private agencies to have an EMS agency covering their location. We're not talking about them, we're talking about everybody else. So we're going to take that system of volunteers, as I said earlier, has been primarily volunteer with a part paid or full-time person helping them out every once in a while. We're going to flip that script. And we're going to go part paid people helped by volunteers. A lot of rumors out there, Ken's trying to get rid of volunteers. I promise you, in my lifetime and yours, we will never see the end of volunteers. And there will always be an opportunity for volunteers to come and run with us and help their fellow citizens. Because the heart of a volunteer has gotten us this far, 45 years, and we're standing on the shoulders of those people. And I'm not going to look them square in the eye and say, you are no longer needed. I would never do that. And I know that our Board of Commissioners would never do that. So everybody needs to have high-quality pre-hospital care at the advanced life support level within 10 minutes or less. That's our goal. If you read some of the national stuff, they say 8 to 11 minutes. Well, 10 minutes is right in the middle of that. So that's why I said 10 minutes. A lot of people have questioned that. That's why. National Fire Protection Association or National Association of EMS says 8 to 11. We're going to go with 10. That puts us in there. So we're moving on. We're doing it just because of these reasons. Just like I said, volunteerism is declining. Some of those reasons for that is because of the higher regulations the federal government and the state put on us for volunteers to be certified. Okay, we expect a volunteer EMT who runs 3-4 calls a month to have the same acuity and training and education as a person who does it every day at St. Vincent's. And we not only expect that, we require that, and it's not us that does. It's the state, it's ODH, it's the federal government. An EMT is an EMT, emergency medical technician, whether you're paid or you're not. Just like a nurse or a physician who goes to South America and helps people. If you're a nurse in South America, you're a nurse here, scope of practice is very similar, and they make you be certified and licensed at that level. So that's what we're doing. Nothing more than anyone else does. But our out of service numbers, which if you see it, we started putting it in the paper, caught a lot of heck for it, because we're just letting people know. We're supposed to have 5-6 ambulances on the road. Sometimes we only have 2, sometimes 1. It's when it starts to get frightening, we need to let people know that that's happening so that we can work to fix that. And that's what I'm trying to get accomplished. So how are we going to do it? We're going to do it by leveraging the funding that's already there. We know that some of the townships, most of the townships and villages already have a levy for EMS service. So we're going to try and get them to leverage some of that money to help us do this. That can be in the form of building a station, building or providing payroll for personnel, or helping us do that through contract service. We need to get ourselves on a path towards one single joint ambulance district. 10, 12 years ago, we started down the path of having 4 or 5. Just like we're going to say at the end of this presentation, we find out that it's a little smoother business-wise if we did it through one. So at the last meeting we had, the Seneca County Joint Ambulance District was formed officially by the 10 townships and 6 villages that are involved in this project. So that's exciting because it's like the first real movement we've seen. We've met a lot. We've crunched a bunch of numbers. We had a study done in 2017. We've done all kinds of stuff. But having those townships and villages come together and say, yes, we need to do something, is important to keeping us moving forward. And just like we did when we realized we needed to reevaluate, we're going to do that again. And until we find the right combination. We're definitely using methods that were learned from 88 other counties around us, many different organizations that run EMS across the state. The closest one to us is Sandusky County. We use them a lot to talk to those folks. We talk to their administrator, we talk to their EMS folks, and we learn what works best. Who's going to be involved? Well, obviously, the title of this lecture is We're Better When We Work Together. So as many partners as we can get together and put our heads to this, share the cost, and share the vision of what we want and how far we want to go to get it, that's going to be important to us. One of the things that's important to remember is according to Ohio Revised Code, EMS is not a required service. We don't have to have an ambulance company here. You have to have fire, and you have to have police. EMS is an afterthought. It's also because it's the youngest of the organizations. Fire's been around since Ben Franklin, and the police departments have been around since the shot heard around the world, right? Lexington and Concord. So we're better when we work together. I'm not trying to get rid of anybody. I'm not trying to get rid of volunteers, fire departments, any of that stuff. We want to work together to make us safe. In fact, I talked to the sheriff today, the chief deputy Chuck, and I was like, if you have an emergency and you're out there taking care of somebody on the side of the road, or it's you want to know there's an ambulance coming within 10 minutes. That means you got to roll the dice for 10 minutes and we're coming, I promise. Right now I can't make that promise. It's chilling. So, initial phase of this, The east side had the most out of service over the past several years. But we also noticed that in our Bettsville area, they struggled to keep volunteers. I can remember a time in the mid-90s, Bettsville was the shining star of Seneca County EMS. We had 30, 40 volunteers up there. People had a waiting list. Those days are past. So we're looking at doing a full-time ALS squad on the east side in Bloomville. We're going to build a station over there. We're looking at some ground. We're trying to figure out where the best place to put that. I'm saying that we do it in a geographic location that puts us squarely in the center of the townships we cover. That way, we're like spokes on a wheel. We can get out to those areas in 10 minutes or less. So that's what we're looking to do. We're going to retain the volunteer squad in Republic and staff that with volunteers, part-paid people, part-timers, if you will, to maintain two ambulances fully staffed on the east side all the time. Now, a lot of folks know that we've published this, the west side of our district gets most of the runs, but the east side gets about as many, it's about 60-40. So we can't ignore that. We have to make sure that the east side is shored up as well. And our other squad, we had 3 on the east side, we couldn't man but 1. So if we take 1, we move it to Bloomville, that squad's sitting there as a backup, ready to go. Our full-time crew goes out, we page out for volunteers, they come in and staff the second truck. That makes a volunteer a true volunteer again. So they don't have to be on the bubble all the time. They can actually go to the grocery store without calling somebody going, can you cover me for an hour? The full-timers will take that weight off the shoulders of the volunteers. We're still going to use them. We're still going to need them. And EMS, like anything else, anything in healthcare, when it rains, it pours. You get 1 sick person, you get 100 sick people. We have it in like 1s and 2s and 3s. So you get 1 911 call, you get 2. If you get 2, you better listen because you're probably going to get the 3rd. And then for 2 days, you don't hear a thing. It's just the way the world works. But we have to be ready at all times, you know. So that's what we're doing there. And on the west side, right now I'm on a full court press to get Bettsville up. Because if we're not there with our full-time people that we've hired, they're out of service 100% of the time. So what was falling off has now fallen off. So we have 2 full-time people there working 48 hours a week. We need to hire 2 more groups of 2, because a crew and the ambulance is 2 people. So we're going to hire 2 more and make that a full-time truck. That'll be the first one to be full-time. And how that's working, the mayor of Bettsville and the township trustees of Liberty and Jackson Township have said, we're going to commit to this, and we're going to build you a quarters so your crew can stay there 24 hours a day. That is a good thing. That shows that they're invested in us. We're invested in them with the people. They're invested enough with the housing. 45 years ago, 1978, when we signed the original contract, it said right on the document, the townships shall provide a suitable station to keep the ambulance with necessary quarters to maintain a 2-person certified crew if necessary. It's never been necessary. Now it is. So we have to go back to the drawing board on that a little bit, and we're getting some traction. The other ambulance on the west side that we're looking at helping, and we are helping, is New Regal. The New Regal area is a tight little community. And I love going there because they're very positive, and they really want to see this work. They don't run that many calls, 150, 160 runs a year. So they don't really need a full-time ambulance, and they got plenty of volunteers. But we're going to help them out with part-time people intermittently to help them bridge the gaps in their schedule to make sure that they're in service and 100% ready to go all the time. So right now, Bettsville is undergoing a refit and update to crew quarters. It would be suitable for 2 people, male or female or both. So that means they'll have separate rooms and things like that. And the other thing that's happened there, like I said, New Riddle's staffed pretty well right now with volunteers, but I don't think they're going to be that way forever, but we're not going to push anybody out. As long as the volunteers there and they're on the schedule, we'll hire the part-time folks and keep them available to the EMS coordinators over there to utilize on their schedule if they need them. And that'll be a monthly schedule, which is something volunteers have never really had to do. You know, at work, we always schedule. The volunteers are like, I'm available, I'll be around, and then when the tones go off, they go on a run. The problem is we're running into situations where nobody shows up, and then we have to call another ambulance. So we want to avoid that. So we're currently giving them part-time people every now and then. I got a couple of part-timers. One is Andrew Branson. He's a medical student. He comes home. When he's home, he runs squad every day, pretty much somewhere. But he's that kid. He wants to do it, and we appreciate it. And I love his mom and dad, too. So how we intend to proceed, right there. This is what we're doing right now. We're going to move to a 24-48 schedule as soon as we get those quarters built. Right now, we're just working 12-hour shifts. It's hard to hire people in EMS for 12-hour shifts because 3 or 4 12s a week is a terrible schedule. And it's hard to keep people motivated on a schedule like that. So if you put 24s, 48s, they work 2-3 days a week, then they have a couple of days off. The fire schedule, traditional fire department schedule. And we're working on those adequate crew quarters, and we're going to keep adding full-time crews as long as the commissioners give me the budget to make that happen. And that's what we're all talking about, is whether or not we're going to be able to afford that, right? So we're going to retain that echo paramedic. We got that guy here since 2008. We've got some really qualified people. We have a paramedic of 35 years in Mary Zimmerman. We have a RN paramedic in Darren Mack, who's been here since the beginning. And we've got, yes, sir.
Can you explain the fundamentals of what the echo is?
Absolutely. The echo paramedic is a high-trained paramedic, usually with 5 years of experience or more in critical care, so that when we have a very basic EMS crew go out in the ambulance, the paramedic follows on. And if you need higher standard of care, you need medications, or there may be some surgical interventions that we can do in an emergency, paramedics qualified to do that. And that brings life-saving equipment and skill set to your scene. And then we also use that as a supervisory role and as a training aid. So that person will do training, and we're doing it now. Every day he works. Every day the echo's on, they go out to the stations and they do an hour or 2 of training every day. And that just, in medicine, one day you're completely up to date on everything, and the next day everything changed. And anybody who's been in healthcare knows what I mean. I mean, we just get a new gizmo, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know how to use that. So we do a lot of training, lots of training. So they also have a very big role in our supply, inventory, and medication. The Ohio Pharmacy Board they're not mean about it, but they really they're stickler for documentation, because in this day and age with medications and people stealing narcotics and things like that, we have to be above board every day, all the time, and checks and balances. The echo paramedic helps us in that role. And then eventually moving forward in a mobile integrated healthcare, or what we call community paramedic, if you have a procedure done, like I had a hip replacement in August. So I had to follow up with my doctor a week after the surgery. We have a community paramedic in place. He could come over, get my weight, do an assessment, vital signs, even plug in on the laptop, and we talk to the physician. I don't have to drive to Toledo. Now this is all future, but those things are being done currently in places like Cleveland and Geneva by the Lake and Oxford, Ohio, places that have full-time EMS, ALS 100%. It's an expensive hobby, but it's very necessary, especially in the rural communities, which is where our broadband initiatives and things like that are going to connect us and make us a lot better quality-wise for the patient. Our future in the Northern District. There's a lot of things going on up in the Green Springs, Adams, and Pleasant Township area. About 5-6 years ago, they went their own way. They hired a private EMS company, and they thought that would be the answer. Well, they're seeing us get organized, and they would come back into the fold. And I think that's a really good thing, because we're better together. And the higher... There you go. Well, and the good thing about it is, in my opinion, and you will disagree, is if we spread the cost of this across a larger geographic area, it has to be cheaper. Do you think I'm right? I mean, I don't know.
Everybody shares.
I just think that if we could do a larger area, smaller levy equals the same amount of dollars. And I'm not that smart when it comes to this kind of thing, politics and levies. I know my stuff and they know theirs, and I try to let these guys do their thing and I do mine. So what we're looking for up there is 6 full-time personnel, just like we would have at every other station. 3 paramedics, 3 EMTs or advanced EMTs, and they're hard to find right now. Not a lot of people signing up to be in healthcare. Can't imagine why. Well, you guys are all wearing masks. I'm way apart from you, so I'm not. But it's a challenging thing right now, taking care of people. So I plan to home grow them. We're going to get EMTs straight out of Sentinel. We're going to keep them working for a year or two. We're going to send them to paramedic school. We're going to give them a full-time county job with PERS retirement. And they can start here and end here with a 30-year pension. And if some of them go off to medical school, great. Just come back and talk at one of my conferences or one of our education days. And that's what I plan for young Andrew Branson. He's going to come back and he's going to share that knowledge with us. And we need things like that. So what's it going to take? Well, for a long time, we've been working together, and we plan to continue to do that. There's a lot of negativity. There's also a lot of positive. A lot of folks don't understand, and we're not trying to get rid of anybody. We're trying to help those people be successful. By doing that, we keep people alive. We give them a better chance at a good outcome. We can't change everything that happens on God's green earth, but we can give you an opportunity to be in touch with a physician, a specialist, who can put you away from the path of dying and on the path of healing. And that's the way I look at it. Very few things that we do save lives right now. But if we can arrange the meeting with you and the specialist, be that by helicopter or by ground ambulance, we give you a better opportunity to survive. And with that costs money. And with that money, we're talking about we need full financial commitments from these joint ambulance districts to say we're in. We want to help you. And in the future, that single joint ambulance district is going to need to contract with us, the county, for the service. And essentially, the joint ambulance districts would not really have any operational control over the ambulance service. The county would have that. But at the same time, the county has always had 100% of the liability, the responsibility. We pay for all the insurance, all the equipment, all the training, everything. So the operational control, direction and control should lie with that entity, and that's the county. If you want to look around at some of the other counties, we've talked to Athens County, Coshocton County, Delaware County, Sandusky County, even Cleveland. They do it this way. Pretty much all of Cuyahoga County and the city of Cleveland proper does it the way we're talking. And having this much area, we don't cover this. Clinton Township or Tiffin, we don't cover the Fostoria area. And right now, we don't cover Thompson or these areas. But once we bring all that together, we're covering 10 townships, 6 villages, about 35,000 people population-wise, 340 square miles with 4 ambulances. That's my end goal. Never get rid of a volunteer squad. We'll always keep them as long as they're capable of running, as long as they're capable of meeting the standard, which is the education piece. And that's my goal. And I didn't make this up. This is all published. We had a study done in 2017 by a group from the Mayo Clinic. They came here. They were very impressed with all the volunteers that we had because very few places have that anymore. And they met with a lot of us, all of our elected officials, a lot of our local physicians, nurse managers, folks in the community, in the healthcare community, who have influence. And they wanted to know, is this something you guys can live with long term? Volunteers that in 2014 we had 170 of, 140 of, and now we have 50. If that holds true, 5 years from now it's going to be a different animal. So I'm asking for your help, and I hope you can get some good information from this. That's our fleet. Looks pretty impressive from the air. It's a drone picture. I had nothing to do with it. I just stood back and watched. But this is one of our Echo units. These are the 6 ambulances on the road. We're replacing that one right there. It's a 2008. The suspension's a little shot. It either needs to go to Toledo spring and axle or it needs to be replaced. After looking at that quote, I think we're going to replace it. That's our Echo unit currently, and that's my buddy Darren Mack, who's our full-time paramedic on the C shift, and he is an RN in Fostoria Community ER. So if you see him, you're usually having a bad day. But Darren's a very nice young man, and he's got a brand new baby. His last name's Mac, so he's from New Regal. His baby's name is Ian, and I call him iMac. So He's a great guy. So I talked for about half an hour. Now I'd like to talk to you guys. Tell me what you want to know. Yes, sir.
Who can we talk to in Green Springs and Adams Township to get them on board full time?
Well, Bill Frankert, I spoke to him today. He's an Adams Township trustee, and he is in support of this. He's out there beating the bushes. I see him a couple times a week because I live over the east side. So when I come by the truck stop there at 19224, there's Bill's truck. And he's in there shaking hands and kissing babies. And he's having coffee with the farmers. And I'm telling you, it's a very influential group. So he's doing it right. He's out there early in the morning and late in the evening. He's putting the work in. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Greenslade's very involved.
Yes.
As well.
Mayor Greenslade. And he's a well-spoken gentleman, and he can actually, he may not agree with everything I said.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
No, he is actually. And he may not agree with everything I say, but I have a lot of respect for him in what he's got to accomplish. And he made some hard decisions.
Yeah.
He and Bill and Mr. Kingsborough made some hard decisions. I didn't necessarily agree with him, but we could still be, colleagues and not yell at each other. And even though we don't necessarily agree on everything, they did what they needed to do at the moment to get it done. And I appreciate that.
But we'll have some conversations.
I'm sure we will. Yes, ma'am, you had a question.
How does Seneca County compare with some of the counties around us?
Well, Sandusky County has had a full-time EMS system since 1975. They use a 0.25% sales tax plus EMS building revenue. The difference, and it's kind of a stark difference, is they cover the city of Fremont. Seneca County does not cover Tiffin, which is the county seat. Fremont's the county seat of Sandusky County. So they bring in just about $2.6 to $2.8 million a year in sales tax revenue, and equal amount or a little more in run volume, because they run about 5,500 to 6,000 EMS runs a year. And they bill, and they hard bill. One of the proposals I had, and I don't want to let it out of the bag, but I'm going to, is I believe if we push this tax levy through, we should stop billing county residents. But I said that to commissioners about 10 years ago, and it's not a very popular thing because this is an expensive sport. And it costs a lot of money to do this right. EMS, police, and fire cost a fortune if you do them right. But safety is a big, important thing. I mean, it depends on who you ask, on what day, and what their history is. Do you think fire, police, or EMS are more important? It's kind of a loaded question. Because you can't say, well, I'd rather have one before the other, because you really need them all. And you never know what your day's going to bring, right? So it's best to have them all and not need either of them. That's the old Boy Scout motto, have and not need, better than needing and not having. So, did I answer your question, ma'am? Well, I can also tell you this. Delaware County. I'm very good friends with the director, the EMS director of Delaware County. Delaware County, we can't really compare, okay? So Delaware County has Polaris, they have the mall, they bring in, it's just in sales tax revenue alone, over $30 million. EMS gets a portion of that. They get $19 million a year for an EMS budget, and they give back $9 every year. And they run 10 ambulances on the road. What I take away from that is every county I've went to, Athens, Coshocton, who's a really good guy, by the way, he came to our meeting and spoke. That's videotaped. We can put that out. Every ambulance full-time across the state of Ohio costs about $600,000 a year to run, totally. That means payroll, maintenance, fuel, medications, equipment, everything. About $600K. If anybody can find a way to do it cheaper than that with full-time paramedics, you found the chicken that lays the golden egg, and you're going to be a billionaire. Because nobody else across the state or country can do it cheaper than that. It depends on where you live, But we think we're rural. This is not rural. We have 8 hospitals around us. We're right where we need to be. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to live because you can be at any one of these hospitals in 20 minutes or less from right where you're standing. And not everybody in the country has that. Go to Montana or Texas.
Could you put the county map up?
Yes, sir.
So, to expand on your question, and I'm sitting next to Gina Grandello. The county's like an Italian restaurant. It's chaos in the kitchen, seriously. So Kent's life,
A lot going on.
you know, so there's a 911 call, and nobody's there, and it's chaos. And then here comes the Italian meal with the big smile, and they lay it down in front of you, and it's a great meal. Okay, so we are able to still provide the service that he's talking about, but we're in the red zone. Okay, so we're good. Everybody's getting service, but it's really getting harder and harder to deliver. So we're trying to get out ahead of it.
I'm not trying to say the sky's falling.
I'm just going to make one statement. This
Let's
is
get a little closer.
so.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 10 volunteer fire departments in Seneca County. You can add them up, and that counts Kansas and Sycamore, which is McCutcheonsville. So you have 10 volunteer fire departments. You have 2 cities. We can't afford at $600,000 a squad to have 10 squads in every fire department. We can't afford, like the old days, like today, to have a squad in New River, Bloomville, Attica, right? We just can't afford it. So what we're trying to do is put 4 of these. You can point the arrow up there if you would.
Yeah, sure. It's over there.
And we'll address the Adams Pleasant area. We're going to bring it out of Green Springs and move it to the south, because if you're in Green Springs and you're an EMS vehicle, you have a half circle, right? You don't go to the north. Well, that's not very efficient. So we want to strategically place these. We've got it down where we can put 4 of these up and be anywhere in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Every one of these townships is 6 square miles. Okay, now we got to deal with railroad tracks and blizzards and, okay, but that, excluding that, along with an improved 911 system, dispatch, getting everything coordinated. Go ahead, we're talking about 4. There'd be one right
2, 3.
up
4.
there by the old Oaken Bucket or somewhere in that area.
That's us.
Okay, right? One right out here,
Up in
between
there.
Seneca East Schools and the diner
And
on
up in
19, somewhere there, right? One up, you just point one up in there. Yeah, down, there's an area, 3-mile radius we have, and then one.
Well, and
over here.
if you look at it, and you guys have been out and drove this county, so you know, what we're looking for is an intersection somewhere in the areas of the 4 corners intersections that can get you east and west and north and south, because you don't want to box yourself in. So if you can get north and south, east and west, you are a better asset to the community, because you can go either way, whichever way you need to go. So we're looking at, say, I think one of the best spots would be right across the street from the drive-in theater out on 53. Because that way you can go across 34, you can come down, hit 38 and go across, and you're right there in the middle of the highway in Devon, which is 53. So some of these things we know, and they're constant. The costs of a full-time ambulance are pretty much the same across the state. So we know that we can't afford all that today, but if we start on 1, 2 years from now we start on 2, 2 years from now we start on 3, 4 years from now we start on the last one. We're looking at a 4 to 5 year, 3 to 5 year projection to get at least 2 on the road. We can still depend on the volunteers for the other 2. Like I said, I'm not saying the sky's falling, but we can predict that if the volunteer decline continues, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, we have to be ready for that when it happens. The eventuality of that is we're not in dire situation just yet. But how long do you want to wait before you say we are?
It's coming faster than you think.
It is.
And I want to just ask this fire, for this is my favorite, if this was an aha moment. So if any of us in here, we're going to buy a house. Remember when you bought your first house? You're going to buy a house. One of the first questions, I'll speed up. One of the first questions you're going to say is, what school district am I in? Does everybody agree with that? We're blessed because wherever you live in Seneca County, we have a big school district. But that is a legit question. You might ask the second question. What fire department am I in? Because that affects your insurance ratings, right? If you're a class 9, way out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have fire, okay. but how many people ever ask the third question? If I hit 911, where does the EMS vehicle come from? Does anybody ever ask that question?
I think most people think it's fire department.
Okay, we have a lot of people. Okay, so what people think is some angel from heaven just parachutes on your front door, and they come in, just like the movies, and you're saved. It's not like that. It's a heck of a long ways to come way over here to Crothers and then drive all the way to Willard. There's a lot of time. So because of all that time, we are not going to compromise the quality of coverage. You got to have people when they get there that can treat you. Because with modern medicine, you could save somebody's life in their kitchen.
Well, and the interesting thing about that,
Then transport.
I wanted to mention that.
Well, this is what we're up against. So we have to do a better job. You heard it first.
Yeah.
We're going to have to educate the public on if you hit 911, where do they come from, and how long does it take to get here? Ask yourself that
Especially if you're
question.
laying there on the floor.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate the opportunity to come explain it to you at the level where I don't know what you want to know. So, I mean, I'm explaining it to the commissioners. I think they understand. Yes, ma'am.
What would be one of the best ways of advocacy to cooperate with those who are getting paid to do the job and those volunteers who have earned respect for doing the job?
Absolutely. Well, that's a really good question. And the thing of it is what we do right now is we have some of the folks that work for Tiffin actually volunteer with us. And some that volunteer with or work full-time with Willard volunteer with us. So they have that mutual respect back and forth between the volunteers and the paid crews. The issue is that volunteers, most of them work a full-time job or a career in something. We even have some that are medical doctors. We have some that are veterinarians. Those people are busy, okay? They're the best EMT in the world. We can't have them all the time. And we can't afford to pay them. So they're volunteers, and we would never want to get rid of that because it's an absolute resource that we can't replace it. So we don't want to alienate those folks. So we have our full-timers coming in and volunteer with those, and the volunteers go and try to get these jobs. We lose some people to that every year. We expect it. We anticipate it. We hope that they do that. But one of the things I wanted to kind of point out, and forgot to do it early, in the city of Tiffin, right now, if we called 911, if I fell over dead and you called 911, we'd have 3 people show up. At least 3, sometimes 5. 3 of those people are going to be paramedics. 2 of them probably will be either a paramedic in training or an EMT captain of some sort, been around for 25 years. They're going to organize that care, get me out of here and get me to the hospital in less than 10 minutes. From the time I fall down to the time I'm out there, 10 minutes and the helicopter's coming. We want to bring you that same thing in the townships at 10 minutes or less. I can't offer you to be at a trauma center in 10, but I can get you anywhere in this county, if the weather's nice, I can get you to a trauma center in 15 minutes. And that's how fast our helicopters fly. Now, if the wind's against you, it takes a little longer, and not a whole lot. I did that for 10 years. I flew helicopters for 10 years. And I loved coming here because I knew everybody. That's the mutual respect. You know, they knew me then. I kind of wish nobody knew me in this position because I enjoyed doing that. But as you get older, you got to kind of go where your strengths are. And my strengths now are planning and progressing this system into the next level. And the next level is advanced life support care anywhere in 10 minutes or less.
Why did you point out Thompson Township?
Thompson Township currently contracts with the city of Bellevue, which is North Central EMS. So they actually contract with the city of Bellevue Fire, and by default, they get EMS coverage through the contract the city of Bellevue holds with North Central EMS. North Central EMS is owned by Fisher Pettis Hospital, and I believe there's some big business at work there. I don't think they're going to stay in the 911 game forever. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
How much of Sandusky County does Green Springs cover?
None. Well,
Other
from the
than-
lake,
other than within
right, the
village
village
limits.
proper, right, from 62
Whole
over the
village.
light there at the gas
Yep.
station, they go up to just past the Dollar General,
Yep.
where the county line is.
Okay.
But,
Well, they do St. Francis.
yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
and whatever that is, and you know, that's an opportunity.
Or the Elm.
Yes, ma'am, and sometime in the future, that place is gonna be bought, and it's gonna turn back into what it was.
It keeps.
And I really see that as an opportunity for us. Yes.
I mean, yeah, whatever it is, it's not even Elmwood now, right?
I honestly don't recall the name.
Yeah,
It's changed so many
yeah,
times.
I
I
know.
want to make one more comment if I can. So the only reason I'm coming up is because I didn't know any of this, and after I know, it's interesting, okay? So when you look at the county, you have townships. This is something for the League of Women Voters, and maybe this is an interesting, it's called a phenomenon, for lack of a better word. You see the townships, but what's really interesting, if you live here, you could go to school in Cary. Everybody follow me? If you live in Bloomville, where do you go to school?
Buckeye Central.
Buckeye Central. Okay. If you live in Thompson, where do you go to school?
Bellevue.
Yeah, yeah.
If you live in where you live in Adams Township, where do you go to school?
Like Green Springs.
Why? If you live in Kansas, where do you go to school?
Lakota.
Lakota. Okay. If you live in Melmore, where do you go to school? Mohawk.
Mohawk, yeah.
Where's Mohawk?
Mohawk.
It's not in our county, right?
Wyman, basically.
Wyman. Okay. So this is what you're up against. So you go to a township meeting, right? And you have fire districts, but you have school districts that are different than fire districts. Okay? Way different.
Yeah.
But the people, your friends, that go to, so like if you're in Melmore, right now Eden Township's covered by Sycamore Fire. Well, that's who my kids go to school with, that's who they play Little League with. But Sycamore Fire Department's 3 miles outside the county, and they could be on a call way over here. But if there's a call in Eden, they got to turn around and go back to but they're buddies with Sycamore Fire Department. So this is not an easy task to bring everybody together, let alone figure the money part out.
Mhm.
But to Ken's point, we're making great progress. Okay, so this is one of those things where bigger is better. So we say to the taxpayers, there's only one health district, right? One park district, one county library. If it makes sense, we all pay for it, we all can use it. But when it comes to EMS, those that aren't, that don't have good access to EMS, and those that want to come in the future,
That's right.
we need to strategically build this. And I think we're on to something, but you can kind of get an idea what we're up against. 10 volunteer fire departments, school districts all over the place, but the people that live here are voting, they're not sure what they're voting for. Okay, so Thompson, uses Bellevue, they use their, so we still have some of that going on, but that's not sustainable.
Like
Okay.
in Adams Township, you talk to people, well, we like Fremont Hospital, we like Bellevue Hospital, we like
Well, you get that.
Get Mercy.
you know.
You go to Finley, right? If you're over here, you go to Finley, you go to Mercy.
Divergent.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Well, and the thing is we're trying to offer 10 minutes or less advanced life support care so that we can take care of you from the time we get to you to the time we take you to whichever hospital you want to go to. And your care, I learned when I was in paramedic school in 1987, 86, that we should, graduate in 87, we should do as much as we can before we get to the hospital, because that saves time for the nurses and the physician, so they can push you right into the CT scanner, or they can push you right over to X-ray, or Doppler ultrasound, or cardiology, or whatever. So the more we put IVs in you, we give you medications, we do all the things we can do. All that stuff that used to take time in the emergency department, we've already canceled that time. So now, the 15-minute, 20-minute ride that you took from outside of Fort Seneca up to Bellevue, when you get to Bellevue, they're like, well, here's the blood, and we'll just run them over to CT, and then literally 45 minutes later, they already know what your disposition needs to be, whether you need to go to surgery, whether you need to go to medicine, whether you need to go to OB, if that may be the case. And the thing of it is if you look, and I know a lot of you folks have, if you look at the hospitals and what they're doing, they're conglomerating into larger organizations to be more profitable, because Medicare, Medicaid, everybody's paying less. The thing of it is the better care you provide, the better they reimburse you for it. If you don't really provide anything except a ride, they reimburse you like you didn't do anything except a ride. So if we have to get to the point, or we will get to the point, where we're not charging you for an EMS bill, the tax money you pay doubles down on itself when we get that money back from the government. if that cash cow doesn't drop over from all the things we're doing to it this year.
See, I support that. So if you live in Adams and you're paying a tax,
Yep.
and your insurance, we take you to the hospital and the bill's $800, insurance pays $400, we're done. We're not coming after you. You're a taxpayer, you live in the county. We're not gonna garnish your wages for that money. Not when you're paying
One thing
taxes. So
about
I'm support that.
volunteers, I will say, I had one experience with needing an ambulance at my home for my son. And I will say that I was so comforted by having someone I knew on that ambulance run. So as far as Green Spring's concerned, I respect and honor all that they do as volunteers. So that was what led to one of my questions as, how do you advocate for, you know, someone say, oh, well, now they have paid people to do that. I'm not against your,
I know.
you know what I'm trying to
I
say?
understand.
This is not easy, but your point is well taken, and it has to be a culture. You know, it's like Tiffin City Schools would welcome volunteers in the classroom to help
Exactly.
read.
And so
But
did
they
Green
have to
Springs.
feel appreciative, there has to be some controls, there's standards, right? There's, you know, and if everybody meets the county standards, and you have a passion for exactly, and I've heard what you
Yeah,
do.
I am a volunteer.
I've heard
Not
what
for EMS,
No,
but I've been
But I've heard what
volunteering.
you've said
Well,
so many
yeah.
times, and I just kind of can't believe how, you know, how much people love their community,
That's right.
and they want to help. It's just
Exactly.
overwhelmingly
And we're lucky that they do.
a positive thing.
Right.
But that's how you have to do it. You have to make it a culture and not, you know, we don't do that, we don't do this.
We're on our second and third generation of
So-
volunteers in the same family.
I think we're trying to do
Well,
that.
we've lost some of that
Yes.
in the younger generation.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
not that.
Yeah. I don't knock the younger generation because, believe it or not, we have as many Medal of Honor winners that are millennials as we did in World War II generation.
Okay.
Because we were at war for 20 years. And those gentlemen and young ladies went out there and put it all on the line for us.
Yeah.
So, yes, ma'am.
For those townships on the far west over by Finley,
Yes, ma'am.
no, not Finley, Fostoria,
Yes.
do you take them to the hospital in Fostoria, or you bring them to Tiffin?
Well, if it's an emergency situation, we have to go to the closest hospital. Our dispatch software through 911 will tell us exactly which hospital that is automatically. So if you are, the Medicare gets splitting hairs a little bit on this. If I'm 8 miles away from Fostoria, but I'm 7.8 miles away from Tiffin, I have to take you to I have to take you to Tiffin or I don't get paid. We don't care about that. We take you to the closest hospital by what we know, and that's where the volunteers come in. These people know their area like the back of their hand. They know how many houses are in their district, they know your name, they know where you live, they know which side of the road your mailbox is on. That kind of institutional knowledge, you can't buy it. You cannot buy it. So they know, if I go this way, there's a chance I'm gonna catch a train. So I'm gonna go this way and take you to the hospital that's 2 miles farther, but closer and faster. So that's how we make those decisions. Yes, ma'am?
How do the 911 calls work? For example, we live in Tiffin, so we
Sure.
call and we get the Tiffin service.
Absolutely.
But is it one service for the whole county?
No, ma'am.
So you don't all feed in?
No, ma'am. That is an efficiency that we're working on with the new sheriff and the police chief working very well together. I think we're going to see that in the next few years, which will save money and also be more efficient. Currently, what we have is we have a dispatcher in Fostoria, we have a dispatcher in Tiffin, or 2, and then we have 2 at the sheriff's office. So all that stuff is routed by a big computer somewhere that's a mystery to me, that somehow does it right about 99% of the time. So fortunately, that does work, and it's we have a relatively new next generation 911 system that as soon as that call clicks and catches the number, it pops up on a map, and the bubble floats over top of it and says who you are, where you live, what your phone number is, your next of kin, if it's in there, may not be, and what ambulance, which fire, which police to send right now. And it gives you the first 2 choices. And if one of them's busy, you send the second one. And then after that, it requires a human at the switch to know, well, that one's out of service and that one's out of service, I'm sending Tiffin. And a lot of times, Tiffin is the path of least resistance because they're already always staffed, always manned. That's where we drop the ball. If we're out of service and Tiffin has to go all the way to Adams Township, how long does that take?
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, so if you're having a heart attack, that's a bad day. And I'm not making light of it. And to answer your question just a little bit better, like with second and third generation volunteers, Mark Mack lives in New Riggle. Great guy, runs the elevator over there. He was an EMT in 1978. His son, Ben Mack, was a volunteer when he graduated high school and then he went to medical school. Now he's a physician in Dayton. His other son, Nate, who is now pre-med, he's also an EMT. 3 generations, and they're all amazing. My son followed me in the Tiffin Fire Department.
Forward. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
The pride carried forward.
Absolutely.
We're losing some of the
We're not.
pride being carried forward.
We don't have to lose it. Those people can stay volunteers until they don't want to anymore. And we will always utilize them. We'll never turn our back on them. We'll still offer them training, all the things that they need to maintain their certification and upkeep, and we'll even offer them a job if they want one. Now, the guys that are docs probably don't want one. But the guys that aren't might, and even if it's part-time. Yes, ma'am.
What is the discussion of backup? Like if there's a run that's taken, let's say Adams Township, that ambulance is out on a run, and there's another call comes in. Who backs that up?
What we do is it's a
Who does it now? Yeah. Versus
well,
how it's
No,
gonna
I
be.
meant in the
in the
plan.
future, it's a game called staging. So what we'll do is, if we need to shift a unit, we'll move it to a geographic location in between these two areas so that they can run both services if they have to. What it does-
I don't understand that. What
Okay,
do you
well, let me show you.
Yeah.
So if we build a station here, or let's just use the ones we have.
Use
okay?
that one, that's simple.
Bloomville, Green Springs. If this squad's out of service on a run, we can move Bloomville up to the corner of County Road 19 or State Route 19 and 224 to cover both areas. That's a 72-mile area.
You mean you're going to move them before they're needed?
Yes, ma'am. You stage them. You move them to cover.
So there's 4 of them, right? One goes out, you can move them out. You'll see them sitting there. Fire departments do it all the time.
Yeah, and this happens in Fremont.
You just don't realize it.
Because Fremont has 2 ambulances in the city, 17 and 18. One comes out of the main fire station down on State Street. The other one comes out off of the main headquarters out by the jail. So when both of those ambulances are busy, you'll see one trucking down the road from either Woodville or Gibsonburg, and they'll come about halfway, and they'll sit out there at Roots Chicken Place on 120, and they'll sit there. So that way they can go either way and cover both areas. Not as efficiently.
Until that other
but
squad
good enough
comes
till
back.
The other one gets in service and then they all go home. And the guys that get paid to do that don't mind it so much. You do that to a volunteer too many times, they tell bad stories about you. They made us go out and sit in the dark for nothing, you know.
So you're 2, I just want to make 2 comments. Go ahead, Jim.
I was gonna say, ideally, volunteers could come.
Absolutely.
And they would man the backup in the area where.
Right,
the
and
squad's out.
that's what we're trying to shoot for. If we build,
In the
instead
future.
of having 3 stations here, we build 1 station there, we put 2 ambulances in. One of them's full-time staff, the other one we call it up. So as soon as that call goes out, dispatcher sets off. It doesn't even have to be a siren or anything like that. We have an app on our phone that says, we need 2 at the east station. And those guys come in, as soon as they clock in, if they're full-time people, they get paid. Volunteers do it, saves us a little dough. And those folks are the ones who would like to do that because they don't have to be on the bubble all the time. Like, every call comes, I gotta take. No, they're the second call. So once that first crew's going, the volunteers nonchalantly put their shoes on, go get in their truck, and drive up to the fire station, and they hang out and wait for that second call. And if it doesn't come, when the other crew comes back, they go home.
And Ken, we've heard stories of volunteers. I mean, the folks that do this, there's a few, and I mean, they plan their entire life around making sure the squad is covered.
Absolutely.
And I mean, can you tell some of the
Yeah,
stories of
my
things?
neighbor, Marty Chambers. Marty is a retired GM employee, and he has been a volunteer since the 70s. He needed a knee replacement. Well, he couldn't do the knee replacement because he knew that if he went and did his knee replacement, he would be off duty for 6 weeks and the squad would be out of service. So he put it off until another guy came back from injury leave because he had had his shoulder done. And you're starting to hear me say part of the problem we have, some of our volunteers are no longer spring chicken. I've had a knee done and a hip. And I'm a young guy compared to Marty. Marty's almost 70. Some of our guys are 70.
Bob, Jim.
Some of them exceed 70 by quite a few years, and I'm not going to tell you. but they're very good for what we need, but they don't want to do this until they're 80, or maybe they do, and if they do, I'll let them. But the problem is sometimes you reach the point of
They can't.
you're scaring me.
Exactly.
I don't want you hurting yourself or anyone, or get yourself in a situation that you're in danger. It's not fair.
So it's the crazy kitchen story, right? I'll give you a live example, and when this happened, it really woke me up. Okay, so there was a call in Bettsville. You live in the Bettsville area at 911. Boom, so nobody's in Bettsville, right? So it tones out to the next one. In this case, might not be in order, it goes to Bascom. Bascom's out.
Yeah.
It goes to Fostoria. Now, Fostoria has a crew, but they were busy. Okay, so mutual aid is, if you got somebody sitting around and you can spare them, you send them, but if you're doing your own thing, they can't come, right? So think about it. Correct me on this. Bettsville's out, Bascom's out, Fostoria's out, they tone New River. Now, we're talking about life as a volunteer in the old days. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm home making the potatoes, cooking dinner. I gotta go, and I'm gonna go to somebody that lives in New River area that I've known for 40 years. But guess where this person had to go?
That's it.
Yeah.
Bettsville. So now
They don't
you're
know the
home,
area.
yes, you're home with your soon-to-be grandchild, and you're on call, and you'll take a call, in your hometown. But now they're asking you to go 24, how far was that? It was 20 minutes.
It's about
or something.
25 minutes.
It was all the way down by Kansas.
Yeah.
So you're asking this volunteer squad to go down there. That's when the light went on. When everybody's gone, we can't live like this. I mean, this is not fair. And so the people are like, I don't want to do this. Or they start complaining. Well, everything that was real positive, and now you start to get and it's not healthy, okay? So the plain English of this whole thing in summary, is at some point we're going to have to go to the voters. And if I was Mirsha from mental health standing up here, my mental health levy is the greatest thing in the world, right? Because I'm the director of mental health. If this was Sarah Betts from the parks, there isn't anything more important than the parks levy, right? They come up with it. So it's time for the Lou to come in from School of Opportunity. There isn't anything more important than his levy, okay? But we're not the people aren't as educated on this EMS thing. They don't get it. They just think you hit 911 and it happens. So after we get ourselves together and on the same page, we are then going to have to go to the public. And with government money, okay, we can't use Jimmy's time, commissioner copier. We can't do it. So there will be like a school levy or a campaign. They're going to form Citizens for Seneca County EMS or something. That's when you'll be asked out in Adams. That's when we'll find a couple farmers, a couple people that live out there, a couple people like yourselves that have testimonials, and everybody have to throw a couple bucks in, and they're going to have to get the cards and the yard signs, and we'll have to have a levy. Okay? And so...
But if the new building's not being built in my backyard, I don't care about paying for anything, right?
Yeah, and so we're going to have all those kind of things that we have to deal with, but we're working super, super hard, and that's what you would want to do to make sure that whatever the ask is, that it's the right amount, but we're not overspending, right? We need to be very frugal, so we got to get everybody on the same page, and we got to be real efficient with the money, and this is what we're all working on. But at the end of the day, here's the answer. I live in Fort Seneca. I pay 2.5 mils like you do. Where does the vehicle come from when I hit 911? Green Springs, right? I live in Pleasant Township. You live in Adams Township. How far is the vehicle from your house?
5 miles.
Okay. Well, how far is it to Fort Seneca? It's like 9 miles. Okay. I don't care where the vehicle is. It's how long it takes to get there.
Yes.
That's what we got to sell, because I'm a perfect example. I pay the highest millage like you do. The vehicle's as far away from as it can possibly be. It's way over there. I live way over here. I don't care, because that thing comes, boom. I love it. That vehicle's out on Route 53 sometimes before the fire department gets there. So it's how fast we can get them there. So we have to, but that is a great question. Everybody asks that question. Because you can't take the vehicle out of my village of Bloomville. Well, I'm sorry. You got all these people who live here too.
Right.
So, but that's exactly what we have to do. There's a lot, so we're not there yet. I don't want to say we're bickering, we are a little bit. But to try to get 16 entities and everybody on the same page, this has been a lot of work. We're not there, but we are definitely headed in the right direction, and everybody wants to get there. Okay, then we have to go to the
I'll
public.
just tell you this.
Do we
Yeah,
have an
go ahead.
estimate of how much we're gonna have to be asking people for?
We don't know the number yet, but it could be a couple more mills. It could be. So
Okay.
it's $35. Saying that right per
Yep.
mill?
Per mill for a
Per $100,000.
Right.
So 2 mills is going to be $70 on a $100,000 house. If we more than 2.5,
Right.
that would be 4.5. We don't know yet. We're trying to do it right, so we don't have to go back to the voters all the time.
Well, I would recommend that you look around the state of Ohio, and see what the
Yeah.
average millage is for
What
anybody.
what is Sandusky County's?
They don't use property tax.
Right.
Oh, they don't use
Nope, they
property.
use sales tax.
Yeah, and so
We don't have that opportunity.
what
Our
happened
sales tax
was
is max.
the commissioners here, you have a 0.5% tax, right? And then the commissioners can impose a 1/4% tax. So the commissioners in Seneca County, before my time, you guys may remember, they imposed a 1/4%
Yeah.
tax. And it's buried in the annual fund, or in the general fund. There's no money, right? So if we do 9 million a year in sales tax, 3 million of it comes from that 1/4% tax. What the commissioners did in Sandusky County is they took that 1/4% tax and they put it in the EMS.
Jeff Wagner got that done.
And they haven't spent that money, so for us to do that, we'd have to find $3 million somewhere. And then you got the city, and so we're working on all that. And so that's what happened. But we do take money out of our general fund, and that's who pays him in the ECHO, and so we are spending money, but it's just not at that level, right?
So city residents would be also the two, you said Tiffin and
Fostoria.
Fostoria. But they would also be part of the millage.
They would not.
No.
Right.
Carved out, 10 townships, 6 villages.
So the final task, on top of everything we talked about, getting everybody together, educating the public, figuring out exactly the money, i.e. the levy, okay, is the reality is, and you said 35,000, but with Bascom and everybody out of it is 20,000. So if you add up the 10 townships and 6 villages that we're talking about in this levy, it's 20,000 people. Right, Jimmy?
Roughly 21 maybe. Yeah.
21,000 people. I'm looking at him, Ken, because he pulled the
I
number.
gave you
No,
the
that's all
chart.
right.
Yeah.
I just used this.
So there's 55,000 people in the county. Gina, you're a law grad, so it's like 35% of the population has to pay for EMS coverage for 65% of the real estate. I mean, we have to cover 65% of the real estate with 35% of the people. Okay, so we have to figure out how to do that economically, but to do it right. Now, the plea is, but we're not there. We're moving on without it. We've asked Bascom, Hopewell, Loudon to come in. If they come in, it drops how much we have to go to the voters for immensely. We've asked Eden Township to come in. They're not ready to come in. We've asked Thompson to come in. They're not coming in. So what do? Do we sit around and do nothing and let this thing collapse? Or do we take everybody that's left, take control of our destiny, build it, and hope that down the road, these guys will come in, which will lower the stress, and because we can get just as good a coverage with 4 stations and who we have as we can by adding all them in. It's not going to affect the quality coverage whatsoever. The math.
Well, and I think the
Proves it.
voter has the voter has.
But we can't make them
has
come
a
in,
vote,
right?
You know, the voter has a vote. So
It's
you
local
use your
government.
vote, but the issue is, it's never gonna get any cheaper. It is right now.
Right.
And the clock's ticking. So Interestingly enough, you don't have to do the plan that I'm putting out there. I joined the Ohio EMS Chiefs Association as a charter member in 2013, so I could get to know guys around the state who do this. So I've met with people.
He's on the state board.
On the state board of EMS Chiefs, and a gentleman by the name of Vince Gildone, who's been in EMS since 1974, still active, very, very good guy, super intelligent. He yells at me every time I see him, like my grandpa, because he thinks, why are you still trying to work with volunteers? And I'm like, because you don't understand, you know. But he's a black and white kind of guy. So I've met with everybody across the state that'll talk to me, including the director of EMS who I met with yesterday. And I said, advanced life support's the way to go, right? It's the only path that you can follow to get to community paramedicine, mobile integrated healthcare. It's the only way you can do it. You cannot do it from a BLS volunteer program. If you want to be at the cutting edge of medicine, this is what it takes. So if we don't want to be, we don't have to be. So if volunteers are okay, and you don't mind waiting 15, 20 minutes, that's fine. I'm giving you the best option for the best outcome for the least amount of money across the largest surface area of the county we can find. It's up to you to make the decision whether you want to do that or not. The question was asked of me numerous times. A lot of people who use my name in vain, they don't like me very much. Because I tell you it's expensive, and it is. If you do it right, it costs money. If you don't want to do it that way, you don't have to. But we're going to keep trying until we do have to. So if we fail this time, we're going to keep doing it again. And we're going to do it till I die or it passes. Or both.
Question for Mary.
Yes, ma'am.
We live just about a block or two outside the city limits. I just assumed if I called 911, at least the city.
We're in Clinton Township.
Mm-hmm.
I live across the street and I live on the Tiffin line.
You have cities.
Clinton Township's 100% covered by the city.
Yeah.
The township pays a $30,000 fee every year to the city of Tiffin, which is absolute bargain, and it's the best service you can get.
So Tiffin Fire not only covers Tiffin, but it covers all of Clinton. So,
Can you identify this gentleman for us?
This is Tony Paradiso.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this. I'm on the county commission.
So,
I do want to say that my friends really appreciate having the address, street address, so visible, because when you're in town.
Yeah.
The township trustees do that.
yes.
They do that with the numbers, the blue
Yeah.
numbers.
And they do a really good job of that, and that really helps us, especially our full-time people who are not volunteers of the community, built by the community, for and of the community. Sometimes I got to look at the sign, you know, because I didn't grow up in Adams Township or Clinton Township. I look at I know how to read a map in the east, west, north, south of which side of the road your house is on, but if I don't see your number, I may go to your neighbors. So the townships do a really good job of that, and those blue signs light up a lot better than the green ones up in Sandusky County. I just know that from experience, but those are the things I'm trying to get across to you. I'm not trying to sell you on nothing. I'm just trying to give you what we're planning.
Right.
And we're asking you to support it.
What happens now if you live, like, with Green Springs being Adams
Yeah,
Street being the county line,
Mhm.
you know, that somewhere
certainly.
in Seneca County and some in Sandusky, what happens?
Well,
Who services?
in the case where you don't have an ambulance sitting in Green Springs, you can have Life Squad 18 from Countryside Acres in Fremont at your house in 10 minutes. And they've done it. They can do the nursing home in 10 to 12 minutes. I know that
So
because
Green Springs proper would be hard to buy into this, is that correct?
yes, it would.
But actually, they have bought into it.
Yeah.
It's like, why would New Riddle do it? Why would Green Springs do it? New Riddle's Green Springs already in it. If you live in Green Springs, you pay 2.5 mils. Like you do in Adams and I do in Pleasant.
Okay.
Vehicle sets in Green Springs, and when there's a call anywhere in Green Springs, it takes it.
And that's a testament to the
Only been
commitment
like to
to Mayor Greenslade.
Now, there's reasons both ways to do it, but that's the mayor. You know, Adam is trying to be prudent and do what's best for Green Springs, right? So he's asking good questions, and we're all trying to. We learn something all the time. I mean, this was great even tonight. That's why I came. I want to learn something.
Well, I recommend that everybody does their research. Don't take my word for this. There's plenty of information out there. I have a reading list of about 15 books that you can read. Jimmy, I posted that to him. Jimmy is the PR coordinator, communications guy for the county.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that we put out, he's an educated guy that knows how to write. I'm a nurse and a medic, and I know how to take care of you, but sometimes I don't use all the commas in the right spot, you know. Jimmy cleans up what we say, and it makes it readable. So I do have a reading list and things like that, and Jimmy helps me a lot with the messaging. But what I'm trying to put across to you is this is the option that is the most effective long-term and will be the most bang for your buck forever.
Right. So is this going on a ballot that we need to know about now?
Yes, ma'am, but the county will not put that on the ballot. That'll be the Seneca County Joint Ambulance District. And I don't work for them, I work for the county. So you won't see me out there and raising signs or picketing or any of that. My job is operations. So I'll take care of the stuff behind the scenes. And
But there's no time frame yet.
So the timeline for a ballot, just to give you an idea, okay, we have a timeline. That's, this is a goal. So by the first Thursday in June, which is maybe 3 months, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Okay, by the first Thursday in June, the group of 16 that's trying to get themselves organized, and what's the county gonna do, what are they gonna do? They're having meetings, we're having meetings, okay? After they crunch all the numbers, tear our numbers apart, create their own numbers, look at everything, carry over, vet it all out, they will recommend a levy number, okay? And Derek, the prosecutors approved this. So Gina, we didn't know we could have 2 EMS districts at the same time. That would be a legal question. But the prosecutors basically says that all these districts that are in existence can stay in existence. We can form a new district, which would be the Seneca County Joint Ambulance District. They can go in November to put a levy on the ballot. I'm making this up, formulas. I'm making this up. If that levy passes, then it's all one EMS district. The next day, we dissolve all the EMS districts that are in place and they roll up into the new one. If the levy fails, then we're right where we're at now. The levy fails.
But, Tony, just to be clear, that's not dissolving Tiffins either.
No, it's not dissolving. This is what it's not dissolving. Tiffin, Fostoria, okay? Hopewell and Loudon, the Baskin District, they're not part of it. Eden Township, they're not part of it. They have a deal with Sycamore Fire. Thompson Township, they're not part of it because they're with Bellevue. But it dissolves the NBS District, okay? New Riggle, Big Springs, Jackson Township. It dissolves the JLB District, Jackson, Liberty, and Betsville District. It dissolves Adams, even though they're not formal districts, Adams, Pleasant, and Green Springs dissolve. AVR, that's Attica, Reed, Venice Township. It dissolves Bloom, Scipio Township. These are all EMS districts. They all become part of that new one. But nothing happens to Tiffin, nothing happens to Fostoria, nothing happens to that. But it's a land grab, kind of. It's let's just get done what we can for everybody that needs it. Let's get that done now, and then let's all keep talking to see how we can improve it. So it's kind of the approach.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And mentioning all these different districts, how will the vote be counted? As one unit, and between all of the districts put together, here's the popular vote.
Right. So the districts are passing resolutions now, townships, to join.
Okay.
Okay? So if every single person in Green Springs, Adams, and Pleasant votes no, but everybody else votes yes, it passes. Yeah, it's all or none.
Okay.
Right.
My goal is to give you as much information as you want, not
Is that information?
not inundate you
Kind
with
of
too much.
confusing.
And tell you
We gotta
this.
hit on Greens.
The people at the township level change
These are
their
all
minds
separate.
more than I change my socks. And I'll tell you this, nobody likes change except a wet baby.
Yeah, I'm talking about
So we're
solicitor
gonna change our
right
mind
now.
about
I'm-
which one times before this
Zach
ever gets to the
Self.
ballot.
Who's?
Zach Selby.
So it would behoove you to educate yourself,
I just-
look around the state of Ohio. Take a look at what EMS costs. Decide what level of care you'd like, and let's go for that.
Okay. Where's this information available to me at?
I would, SenecaCountyOhio.gov is our website. If you search Seneca County EMS in the search bar, you're gonna have a whole lot of different stuff. If you wanted to, you could reach out to me directly and I could, because there's podcasts, there's article after article, there's just a ton of resources. So maybe I'll give you my information after and I can help you find specifically what you're looking for.
Okay,
That's okay.
thank you.
Yep.
So we talked about, I think everybody knows this, but Gina mentioned solicitors. So Derek Devine is the county prosecutor. He represents the townships and the EMS districts, but he does not represent the villages. They have a village solicitor. They have their own attorney. Okay? And that's good. And so that's fine. So they get involved wherever we
We've got
go.
like Zach Selby, don't we?
Yeah, we have Zach, you have Zach in Green Springs. And so, when we say this, I'm one commissioner of 3. These people, the mayor's one person with a village council and a solicitor. Bill Franker's one trustee of 3.
Yep.
So this is not, like, we're not agreeing to this. We're just,
Trying to put it together.
instead of having 50 people in a meeting, we're just representatives in a meeting. But we have to take a step back, reset, 2 steps forward. So that's kind of what goes on. And then there's always questions. And the more we do this, the more clear it gets, then it's easier to answer questions. Because now it's just like, there was too many questions. So that's kind of how it's worked.
I don't want you to have to drink from the fire hose. Tonight's the night when you introduce this. So the thing of it is you guys can take this information back to whomever or yourselves, research it. You're going to get more questions the more you read about it. There's an old saying in EMS that, and there's 400 different EMS agencies across the state of Ohio. The old saying is, if you've seen one of them, you've seen exactly one of them. They're all different, every single one of them. And some of them do it with sales tax, some of them do it with property tax. Athens County does it with 3 different property taxes that rotate. So if one fails, there's 2 still running. And they fail one about every 3-4 years. Everybody says, safety levies never fail. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, because they do, and they do every year. But then people realize, oh my God, we don't have the money, our service level drops, and then it does, and then they come back.
Remember when we were all younger? It used to be.
Speak for yourself.
Hey,
I still feel kind of
I'm in that. I'm definitely in that here. So, but when you were younger, you used to say, "Well, it's only a pack of cigarettes a day, or it's only 2 beers a day, or it's only fill in the blank, cup of coffee a day." So today, what we need to understand, and you guys are blessed because you live in Tiffin and Clinton Township. People that live there right now, we're not really addressing them. But if you live where you live and I live where I live, what's it worth to you? I'm having chest pains. It's Friday night.
Or what's it worth to my neighbor?
What's it worth to your neighbor, your grandkids, your mom, anybody that it's just, what is that worth?
Well, I got a couple of
Okay,
selfish reasons.
you buy a house
I have 2
insurance,
grandkids.
I don't know, that's what we have
And
to
they grow up,
do.
they live in Clinton Township. And I'm gonna make sure that if Tiffin is busy, putting out a fire downtown or something, and they can't get a squad out there,
Right.
we can. And another thing on top of that is my son and my grandson and my granddaughter live in this community. I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do it. However,
Thank you.
it's a floating target. You can go as hard as you want or as slow as you want. It just depends on what you want to get done and how quickly you want to do it and how much you want to spend.
And how much support you get.
How much support you get. If we don't get any, we don't change anything, and we're going to have to ride these volunteers into the dust. I live next door to Marty Chambers, who's been the coordinator in Bloomville since 1981. He runs every single call Bloomville has. He doesn't leave. He doesn't go on vacation. He stays home. When he does go on vacation, he makes sure that he contacts every other volunteer and says, can you cover? I'm going to be gone a week. And he's a Corvette guy, so they like to go down to St. Louis and other places, go to car shows. And he can do it when he can do it. But I think it's time for us to step forward and help these volunteers. They're taking some of the pressure off them. These guys work, and they work hard. And all of them have full-time jobs or had full-time jobs.
What's your gut feeling about the possibility of, what's the support look like to you?
I think the support looks good, especially in the medical community, folks like the New Regal area. There's a lot of nurses over there, a lot of people who understand healthcare, and those are the kind of people I'm trying to communicate with so that I can have them be our best voice. My feeling is that everybody wants the same care anywhere in the county. So if you're in Tiffin and you fall down here, you're going to have 2 paramedics at least, or 3, show up. And they've only got to take you 5 minutes. But if you fall down in Attica, it's going to take us 15, 20 minutes to get there. You're going to have a 15, 20-minute ride to the hospital, and you're going to have the most basic care coming. And the echo will come, but it's 25 minutes away. So we're trying to double down on that, make sure you have the care you need when you need it, not too late.
Well, you especially are all for when you're laying there on the ground.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I mean, when it's
That's
really
fine.
needed, that's when you say, why aren't they here?
Right. And there have been some really tragic situations. We all know them. We're all aware of them. We put you in the best position to have a good outcome by putting you in touch with the people who can help you. We're not that. We are the transport service for that. And it's a chain. It's a link in the chain. You break one of those links, the chain's not a chain anymore. So we have to have it all. From community involvement through a good, vital EMS system, fire department, healthcare, hospitals are important, all of that. And I'm meeting with folks at the hospital. I've met with the CEO and vice president of Mercy, the Rural Mercy. And I'm like, all I want you to do is endorse it. I don't want any money. I don't want anything. I just want you to say to people when they talk to you, advanced life support care at the street is important. And then if you want to support it, you'll have the opportunity whenever the levy hits. I don't know that information. I know Tony knows a lot more about it than I do. I'm an operations guy, and people ask me, they're like, you're a nurse and you're all this, why are you doing it? Because I live here. And we need good paramedics. You know, I could go work in Toledo, but I don't want to. I hated to drive, personally. But I have a family here, and I want it to be better for them than it was for us. And that's it. That's all I got.